Hi, I'm Mark Mittelberg, and I'd like to share a simple but catalytic conversation I had a number of years ago. I was at a church service at my church right before the worship service, and a woman turned and looked at me and she said, "Mark, you teach us about evangelism. I'm trying to reach my brother-in-law, and I want to give him a book, but I want it to be something that's kind of simple, straightforward, and really clearly explains the gospel message. What would you give him?" And I thought about it. I thought, there's lots of good books out there and a lot of books that explain the gospel, but what would be simple and straightforward? And so I thought of a couple that I really liked, and I named those books, and she said, "Oh, I've read those books. I really like those books too, but it's too much information." She said, I need something that really kind of gets right to the point. He's pretty open, but he just doesn't quite get the logic of the gospel. So finally, after racking my brain for a few minutes, I recommended a book, and I told her, I said, it's pretty old, it's a little dated in its language and illustrations, but it's a book called The Reason Why by Robert Laidlaw. And I recommended that she get it, and I trust she did, and I trust it served well. But that's a book I had used. I'd given away hundreds of copies of it through my own outreach and through my church. But it was one that I was increasingly aware needed a reworking. It needed to be recreated for a new generation. And that night, after that catalytic conversation, I decided this is something I've got to do someday. Well, someday came, and with God's help, I have sought to recreate that book, The Reason Why. And it just came out. It's called, again, The Reason Why, with a subtitle, Faith Makes Sense. The Reason Why Faith Makes Sense. And I've taken some of the nuggets, some of the gems from that original book, which was written almost 100 years ago, and put them into this. But then I've expanded the repertoire of reasons that I go into. It's an apologetics book, but more than that, it's a book about the gospel. What did an event 2,000 years ago, a man dying on a cross, have to do with our lives today? Well, that's what I explain. I give the logic of the gospel in what I trust will be a clear and concise way. And I just want to urge you in your own outreach and in the outreach of your church, if you think, what would I give someone? If I want to give something that adequately and clearly explains the gospel but doesn't go off on a lot of rabbit trails, what would you give them? Well, I'd urge you to consider using The Reason Why Faith Makes Sense. God bless you in your outreach, and I trust that this will be a helpful tool as you reach many for Jesus Christ.